You're listening to the Ranch Stewards Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the stewardship and conservation of grasslands, diverse ecological landscapes, and the salt of the earth individuals who dedicate their lives to this endeavor. And now here's your host, Haylie Shipp.
Healthy soils make healthy food makes healthy people, and if we're not here to live the best lives we can, to feel the best we can, then what's the point? Welcome to the Ranch Stewards Podcast, where today we're exploring the connections between land, livestock, and the people who care for both. I am your host, Haylie Shipp. Today's episode of conversation in its own right. It's also, though, a preview of an event that we do have coming up October 11th in Malta, Montana. So if you are intrigued by this discussion, make sure to check out the show notes. We'd love to have you in person if you're close to Malta. My guests today, eco-nutritionist Sara Keough, also rancher Craig French. Together, we're going to be talking about what the heck eco-nutrition actually is, how Craig, a rancher from South Phillips County, came to work with Sara, an eco-nutritionist, and the surprising ways that soil health, food, and personal health all come full circle. And I just love this conversation because Craig is like a lot of other ranchers out there. Preventative care. It's just not something that's high on the list, but here he is working with an eco-nutritionist. Craig, Sara, how are you doing this morning?
Feeling good. Yeah, looking good. Yeah.
You are indeed. Feeling good. Excited to be with you.
So we're going to start out with some introductions here today. And Sara, we're going to do this with you first. And we'll dive headfirst into the eco-nutrition part of things, of course, as we go on. But first off, let's just meet Sara Keough from a more surface level. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, kind of where you came from.
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado. My first 30 years of my life were in Colorado. And I actually have a background in ecological work. So I was doing conservation work up in the Rocky Mountains. So it was like my past life. And then about 13 years ago, I moved to Maryland, to the East Coast. And so I've been there ever since. And that's where I went to go get my master's degree in nutrition. And yeah, then I started practicing out there. And, my whole soil health journey actually started out there about 10 years ago too, and getting involved with regenerative agriculture and farming and ranching and all that good stuff. And then moved to Montana just a couple months ago with my fiance. So he's actually working on a regenerative cattle ranch here in Wilsall. So, and just for the record, everyone should know it's pronounced Wilsall, according to the locals, named after William and Sally is what I've been told. So everyone says it Wilsall, which we were saying it wrong. So, so shout out to Wilsall.
I think that's one of those things I strategically say both ways at different times, so I'm only wrong half of the time.
Right.
Sara, so nice to have you with us. Craig, affectionately, you are the first husband of the Ranchers Stewardship Alliance. Your wife, Connie, is the president for RSA, and of course, you are ranchers in South Phillips County. You have been a rancher your whole life. You come from generations of ranchers. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Has this line of work, this way of life, just always been something you knew that you were going to do?
No, I didn't actually figure that out till after getting married in my mid-20s probably. And it, here it was in front of me the whole time. But no. And on a quick note on that, I was told I should know what I'm going to do in high school. And that it did put a certain amount of stress on me. And because I knew I didn't know. So you should have a purpose, and you not necessarily need to figure that out, but have a standard in which you perform, do well with whatever you're doing until you do actually figure that purpose out. So, a person can stray from what he maybe should do until you figure out what you want to do.
I was a graduation speaker for our local high school a few years back, and my one bit of advice for them was, if you have any curiosity, get an internship in that field, because you never know if you like it until you're actually elbows deep into it. So yeah, to think a high schooler ever knows what they're going to actually want to do as a career is just a wild thought.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I am kind of separating this conversation into parts. Part one, I'm calling eco-nutrition. Part 2 is Rancher Seeks Help. Part 3 is Collaboration, Eco-Nutrition in Action. Part 4 is the big picture. So we're going to enter into the eco-nutrition portion of this. And I'm just going to say it, Sara, that sounds made up. What the heck is eco-nutrition? So as we get into this, give us your definition. What is eco-nutrition?
Well, it's funny because I thought it was made up. I thought I made it up, and I actually I tried to have that as a registered trademark for term for my business, but the patent office told me that that's actually an industry term and you can't trademark it. So I didn't make it up. And I was speaking on a panel in California at the end of the month, and they called it eco-nutrition. So it's actually becoming a really popular topic, which is really cool. So I, thought I coined that term partially based off of Fred Provenza. So he's one of my mentors and dear friends I've known for about 10 years. And I heard Fred in a talk one time say that the doctors of the future will be ecological doctors. And I loved that. And what he was referring to is ranchers and farmers healing the land and helping to heal people. So that deeply resonated. And I thought, well, I have my background in ecological work, and now here I am doing functional medicine, in the realm of nutrition and human health. And so it just kind of came together. We're like, maybe I'm an eco-nutritionist then. And also the term, I think, just applies to how we think about health and thinking about us as an ecosystem. And that's what I encourage my clients to think about too, and I'm working with them. So we talk about the gut microbiome, which we'll get into that. And, that's the biggest area of education I give them, is talking about gut health, what the microbiome is, what it does for us. It's what I speak about in a lot of my talks at conferences. But it's encouraging to people to think about us as an ecosystem, our inner ecosystem, and then the ecosystem we're interacting with, right? Our environment, as far as, toxins and our food, and even interacting with other people. We're all exchanging microbiomes and different microbes, different critters. And we're also exchanging that with our livestock and other animals that we have in our home. And so, yeah, it's the inner and outer ecosystems that's like the foundation of our health. So
Sara, you were sort of in this kind of conventional nutrition aspect, and then you went into this eco-nutrition. You said you had this interest in Fred Provenza, but sort of bridge this gap for me. How did we take some of these leaps? How did we jump from one field of thinking to the next?
Oh, that's a really good question. Actually, I didn't start out in conventional nutrition or medicine at all. In fact, I took a very integrative route. I went to a university in Maryland that is more of a private university, but it had a holistic integrative focus, because I didn't want to go the conventional route. And this is not to disparage registered dietitians. There's a lot of great dietitians, but the RD route, the registered dietitian route, is the conventional nutrition route. And that, unfortunately, does teach more of the old school, like food pyramid, calories in, calories out type of, nutrition advice that's very outdated. And we know that's, we have to go much deeper than that. So that's why I moved to the East Coast and left Colorado, was to, get a very specialized degree in integrative nutrition. So I was always really steeped in that, more holistic, integrative type, field and way of doing healthcare. So the way I got involved in soil was very interesting. There's a couple things with the whole soil health thing and agriculture. There's a couple things. My roommate at the time, she had a beautiful regenerative garden, and I was in grad school at the time, and she was always talking about soil. Every time I'd come home, she was going on and on about soil and then the impact of animals on the land and how that helps sequester carbon in the soil. And I didn't know what the heck she was talking about. I didn't care sometimes because I was burnt out. I was working full time. I was going to grad school full time. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, soil health, lady. That's not important to me right now. And now I realized what an ignorant thought that was, right? To not care about soil health and to be in the field of nutrition and human health. So that's my old roommate, Jenny. So shout out to her. That sparked my interest though, because she planted those seeds. And then, I started hearing the second big thing was I started hearing comments from my patients. I was practicing in the DC area, and they were asking, I had a lot of foreign clients from all over the world. All over the world, Europe, Africa, Asia, South America. And it was just a huge, big melting pot. So it was a great experience working in DC, although I don't miss the city. But I learned a lot from those clients. They would ask me questions all the time about our food system and what was going on here. And the question that really struck me was, how come your food has no flavor? The food in this country just does not have flavor. And I didn't know what they were talking about, and I just, again, felt like this ignorant American. I traveled abroad a little bit, but I didn't know what they were really talking about. And it wasn't just the fruits and vegetables, but they were talking about the meat, the eggs, the dairy. It didn't have this rich flavor from their homeland. So that led me to looking into what impacts the flavor of food, and it's the nutrient density of the food. And so I discovered Fred Provenza's work and read his book and was, attending conferences, kind of being his little groupie for a while and following him around. And he just blew my mind with everything that he was teaching me. And then, of course, I started learning from everyone else in the community, Nicole Masters and Ray Archuleta and Christine Jones. And so that started my whole journey into that.
Montana. We are proud to say it's where we live and where we work. The vibe is different here. We are friendly, caring, hardworking, resilient, and resourceful. No one else covers Montana or cares for Montana more than Stockman Bank. To us, Montana isn't just a place. It's the only place we do business. That's why we are Montana's brand of banking.
So, Craig, I'm going to transition now into part 2, and this is Rancher Seeks Help. As Sarah's discussing that, the last part of that answer, talking about Nicole Masters and Fred Provenza, of course, those are thoughts and ideas that you can relate to. But I'm sure as Sarah was giving some of the earlier parts of that answer, that's stuff that's a little bit far-fetched from what your day-to-day experiences have brought you to. So I guess, how did you first connect with Sara? What made you make the call? How did you realize you maybe needed to chat with a nutritionist? Point one, how did you realize that you needed to make a change?
Well, I first got introduced to Sara at the Soil Symposium in February of 25 this year. And she spoke, and she had the audience's attention. It was beyond quiet with what she said. And I've been searching for somehow being able to lose weight. I mean, long and short of it, since we've retained services advice, I'm down 40 pounds since March. And to be able to do that in your 60s is saying something. She found the reason, and we can go into the particulars. But anyway, Connie and I had discussed, here we are focusing on soil health, and I've listened to Fred Provenza. I've had Nicole Masters here on our place, and so we're kind of bumping into the same people, so we could relate to Sara easy enough. Here we are trying to approach our way we manage our cattle from a nutritional standpoint, get away from synthetic fertilizers, get away from pores, just go that way. And it dawns on us, why not do that for ourselves? You have this regenerative ag, environment, take care of your environment. Well, this is an environment. It might not be pretty, but this body is mine. And I need to take care of that too. And so we made a connection there at the symposium. She's got to the root of the cause. It's what I was eating, snored all my life, hardly do at all now. Had a CPAP machine, don't use it. My blood pressure's down, and I'm due for blood work here again just to see what this nutrition course has done to some key indicators. I was pre-diabetic. I was pushing the upper limits of cholesterol, all that, so I'm on a heart attack waiting to happen. So anyway, made the call, and we're investing in her knowledge, her time, rather than, getting maybe a stent or two or complete heart bypass or stroke or that kind of medical expense. And we haven't even touched on, mindset. It's a different kind of hunger. This, when you get control, feeding your body what you should be feeding it. And this is from personal experience. If anybody knows me, they know Craig needed to eat, and they made sure they fed me. But now I can actually ignore hunger. it's not the same kind of hungry. I'll stop there.
You know, as Craig's giving this answer, and we're going to go into the collaboration and all of, exactly what the plan and the steps that we took to get to where Craig is now. But Sara, I'm thinking about my social media feed and the number of multi-level marketing folks I have that pop up into my messenger, always wanting to sell me the latest shake, pill, whatever it might be to help me lose that 5 to 10 vanity pounds that they think I need to lose. But we really are a culture that doesn't seem to want to put the work in. And I guess looking at this from a nutritionist standpoint, you've got to be seeing that all over the place. And so to be working with folks that are willing to put the work in from a standpoint of what they're putting into their mouths, it's night and day difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so proud of Craig. And I immediately felt a connection with them at the symposium. And Craig reminds me a lot of my father, younger versions. My dad is 75. He, unfortunately, my father had a triple bypass surgery a few years ago. So he had open heart surgery. So he has struggled a lot with his health. And so when Craig reached out to me, it actually touched my heart, because he does remind me of, younger version of my father. And I was so proud of him for being proactive and taking this important step. And it's a tough place to be, because you have to be a little vulnerable and be willing to open up and talk to somebody about what you're experiencing. And Craig, can maybe share more about like what the intake process was like. And I have a very thorough, intake form where we dive into all your symptoms, and I really want to do my detective work and get to the root of the health issues. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm bombarded with those too, especially being a healthcare practitioner, all the things on social media, this supplement and that supplement, this workout plan. And some of those things might be helpful, but it's not getting to the roots. And yeah, we really got to look at what's going on in the gut microbiome, what's going on with toxins. What about your stress? How are you managing your stress? Is your nervous system dysregulated? Are you in fight or flight mode all the time? How are you sleeping? Are you getting enough deep sleep and REM sleep? Those are the real, root cause and foundational things that we work on. So.
All right. We are just clipping right through our conversation here. Let's move right into that. Part 3, the collaboration. And Craig, Sara, you guys tell me the story. How does this happen? So you guys meet at the Soil Health Symposium. Craig gets to that point. I'm not sure how much Connie had to twist your arm, Craig, to bring you to Sara and have this discussion of, hey, something's awry. We know that we could be living better lives here. We're not living the healthiest that we could. And you reach out, and Sara agrees that this is something that she wants to take on. So I guess, Sara, why don't you lead us in this? How do we assess the health plan, the health status? How do we build a plan? And then Craig, you can kind of add the color as you will for how this felt from your take.
I love your questions. Typically when I tell people I'm a nutritionist, they just think, oh, you just tell me what to eat. That's the initial thought. Oh, you just give me like a meal plan. And Craig can tell you, I don't really give meal plans, right? I'm here to teach you how to fish, not to give you that fish. Nothing is a cookie cutter protocol. It is all very individualized for every single person. And it's based on your health history, your symptoms, and a lot of what we call functional testing. First we start, with the intake process, right? Which I mentioned, there's these extensive intake forms. I'm asking, it's not your classic intake form that you fill out at a doctor's office, right? It is very deep dive stuff. You're telling me about your health history in detail, your symptom questionnaire, what's going on with your sleep, what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, tell me about your stress, your energy levels. So we really, it gives me all those puzzle pieces to start, putting things together and do my detective work to figure out what is the root cause that's driving your symptoms and your diseases and your conditions. So we look at lab work. I'll look at the conventional lab work that, a doctor has run, which is usually like your annual blood work, cholesterol and, liver and kidney function and all that good stuff. And then we do functional testing. So the functional testing is very advanced testing that's done outside of the conventional world. So this is all testing I've been doing for over 10 years now. So I learned how to interpret all this in grad school. And it's been life-changing for myself and my clients, this type of advanced testing where we're looking at stool testing, urine testing, blood testing, sometimes even hair testing. So testing different tissues of the body, not unlike, testing animals or testing the plants or the soil, right? We do SAP analysis, soil health tests. We do that for the human body as well, right? So we can look at what's going on within your gut microbiome. And we can look at your digestive function. Are you making good enzymes, stomach acid, bile flow? So we can look at supporting digestive function. We can actually look at things in the urine that can tell us about neurotransmitter function and brain health. How well is your body detoxing, your mitochondria? So these are all things we break down. Each session, I kind of go over the results, and put it in most understandable, realistic terms, right? Give you the highlights and then the action steps of what we do to correct those imbalances. There's a micronutrient test. We look at vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or toxin testing. There's all kinds of tests. So usually people start with like a few basic tests, like a gut test and a micronutrient test and omega-3s and 6s. And then we kind of start building a protocol with that information.
Craig, did it feel like you were looking at your soil test results when you got this folder back? It sounds pretty extensive.
Well, I think she came up short of saying one way to check out how your gut microbiome is doing is you look down in the toilet when you're done and see what things look like. And I liken that to I'm doing the same thing out in the pasture based on what my cow patties look like, whether or not those animals are getting what they need. And if you pay attention to how your guts are passing through and getting rid of waste, it's a good indication of whether you're on track or not. And so that's the short and sweet of it. Sarah's smile's all pretty, but she's just like one of them physical trainers that when you're recovering from surgery, they got a mean streak in them and make you do things that maybe you don't quite want to. She's not mean. She's just thorough. And
I didn't take away all your favorite things. No,
I keep wondering what my next session is going to make me do. Okay, now what? But yeah, it's good. I mean, it's been a good process. She's between Connie saying, encouraging me and Sarah with the unending knowledge. It seems like she doesn't just rely on herself. She's still talking to her mentors. She indicates that. I can't quote who those people are, but she does do that also. So she's not solely relying on her own opinion, knowledge. You get quite a reservoir of knowledge there with her services.
Yeah. So often in agriculture, we grow commodities and we produce commodities for the general population, but we're a bit removed from the consumption of the specific commodity that we produce. And as a cow-calf producer, we might feed out an animal that we consume. And sometimes we might have a garden, maybe, but that isn't the case extremely often. I think by and large, as more and more people have a job in town, that might go by the wayside. So I know as somebody that lives on a ranch, grows livestock, the amount of food that I eat that comes off of my land is very, very minor, looking at the general scheme of things. So Sarah, as you're looking at this full picture, are you persuading people that they just need to be eating more that's coming off of the soil that they've been nurturing? Or what does this look like as you're making this transition for folks?
Not a great question. Yeah. And it's been an interesting experience moving to Montana, right? Because now I'm really immersed in this community and what it's like to live in a more rural area versus, on the East Coast in Maryland. So, people have to drive pretty far sometimes, right? Just to get to town, maybe a few hours to even get to a store. And I am a big fan and big believer of eating what's local and seasonal as much as you possibly can, right? And so what that might look like for us in Montana is, when we have abundance in the summer, like take advantage of that, right? And try to get to those markets when you can, the farmers markets, right? So I'll drive sometimes an hour or two away just to go to a farmer's market or find that person that has really good quality pasture raised chicken. So we had that conversation, Craig, right, about food quality. And I was asking what kind of questions, right? What do you feed your chickens? Where do you get your pork? Tell me about what they feed the pork. Do you have a garden, right? What can you grow in your garden? And yeah, we just unfortunately have a short growing season here during the summer. So take advantage of all that abundance is what I'm really trying to teach people. And then just understand that when winter comes around, it's almost like got to embrace more of a little bit of a carnivore diet in a way, maybe kind of cut back on some of the veggies. Now, I don't do that 100%. I kind of go a little bit more carnivore. I even did this in Maryland during the winter months. It was like, all right, well, we don't have all this fresh produce growing now. So I'm going to maybe eat some things that were canned. And I don't do a lot of canning, but I want to learn how to do some canning. So if you know how to can your food, can your vegetables, and have that to get through some of the winter months, and ferments. So I definitely eat a lot of fermented vegetables. That's sauerkraut and kimchi. You could actually ferment a whole variety of vegetables, not just cabbage. So relying on ferments and fermented veggies and canned veggies to kind of get through some of the winter months, but otherwise just, going heavy on the meats. Chickens, the hens don't produce as much eggs during the winter months, right? So maybe not as much eggs, but whatever you have, whatever you can get access to. And I know a lot of people are going to go, what? Carnivore? That's crazy. But we could talk about that a little bit too if Craig wants to get into his health improvements later with adding more protein to his diet. But what I will say in all my patient case studies, and what I'm very passionate advocate for is definitely including more meat in your diet, especially red meat. Because it is truly one of the most healing and nutrient-dense foods we can be eating. And all the myths we hear about red meat is just, it drives me insane. And I'm sure it makes ranchers upset too, right? So I'm very big advocate of including more red meat, and we have an absolute abundance of that here in Montana, right? So and I see very positive health outcomes with my patient case studies with improved cholesterol, reduced inflammation, right? More energy, just feeling better when they add more meat to their diet.
Craig, what are some of the things you've added? What are some of the things that you've gotten rid of as you've gone through this change in your nutrition?
Mainly, right from the get-go was, no grains. That was pretty much all she really had to say, which means a lot of the carbohydrate thing. It's amazing how much the carbohydrates gets control of you. I mean, it'll tell you you're hungry because you process that. It's not a long withstanding food source to eat, and then it just keeps telling you to eat. I grew up with the nutritional advice and got it in my mindset that if you only eat so much meat, but pay more attention to these other food sources, and this is the exact opposite. And but I had trained myself to eat like I was being told, and now I'm switching over, and after 40 some years of paying attention, I guess, to this, and it's so much better. I mean, it is. I'm a retired wrestler / coach, and so I know the diets. If you want to put it that way, starving. This I get to eat. I just flat get to eat. Maybe limited. I eat more meat, eat eggs, eat dairy, eat the fermented foods, vegetables that qualify. There's some that don't. I didn't realize that. I thought all vegetables were good. Some fruits aren't necessarily. Bananas got are high in sugars, and that was a tough one for me because I like my bananas. But literally, you either get used to telling yourself no, or you just lose a taste for it, and you don't crave it, and you give it some time. I mean, March. This isn't that long ago, and here I am. Advanced in my health that much, and it just doesn't have a hold on me. Now, granted, I'll have relapses. You don't want to be rude when you go visit somebody and they'll offer you up something, so you go ahead and you have some of that. Well, then it takes 2 or 3 days to get rid of that substance, and off you go again. But that's your break, I guess, your release from the stringent, don't eat this. And it's not that way. It's just you get used to telling yourself no. You get used to eating more what you can, like load up on that protein, that slow release meat, and have at it. So it's been one of the best things for me to have done this.
I love the rooster that's been crowing in the back too. It's been the perfect sound effect for you, Craig. So it's good to look at this.
Yeah, I go pinch him every once in a while. Connie's pinching them every once in a while.
as we look at these changes, you've mentioned down 40 pounds, clearly your energy levels are up. Any aha moments for either of you as you've gone through this experience together?
Craig, go first.
Well, I just, Sarah's just not another pretty face. She actually knows what she's talking. But no, that's the smart aleck answer. Aha moments is how I guess I'm disappointed in how we've been what we've been led to believe. What I had been led to believe and that this is not, popping a pill to correct something. This is just a lifestyle change and getting to the root cause of why. The inflammation, that was quite a lot of that went away rather quickly. So you're going to get a certain amount of accelerated weight loss. Now I've gotten rid of most of that. And now we're just checking away at the extra grease I got on me that I don't need. And I'm 2/3 of the way there. What of my projected or wishful weight loss. So the aha moment, I guess, Haylie, would be just how from being advised, I'm being advised in a correct way right now versus what I've been advised in the past.
Sarah, how about you?
Yeah. So for me, I think my aha moment has been seeing, I guess, how many ranchers and farmers are really resonating with my message. And that feels really good because I don't come from a background of agriculture, farming or ranching. I only dived into this community within the last 10 years, but, and Craig and I have had some conversations about this, and learning to speak farmer, and connect with these communities, was something I was always, trying to be better at. Is my message really resonating? And so when Craig first reached out to me and then other people from the conference, that was an aha moment that, okay, good. I'm making connections here, and that feels really good to know that message really hits home for people, and people are taking that step to actually reach out. So, because I want to be, as a healthcare practitioner, there's a lot of hats you have to wear. You kind of have to be the sort of scientific mind, and you got to be able to interpret the lab work, and you have to stay organized, and you have to be a good listener. And you also have to know how to connect with people, right? And make people feel comfortable to be able to sit down with you and share their very personal health information. So that was an aha moment that, okay, I'm able to connect with, someone like Craig, who reminds me very much, like I said, of my father, and that very endearing quality. Craig, if I can only get you to inspire my dad to listen to me, then that would be amazing. But, so that felt good to know that it's not just, women that are reaching out. And I would say, gosh, at least a third or maybe even half of my clients now are men. And that's been awesome to see that a lot of men are kind of like, willing to take that step and reach out for help, because traditionally it wasn't always that way. So that was an aha moment for me that I'm making that connection. That feels good.
It's interesting. We're going to have the next podcast actually talking about rural healthcare as a broader picture, because we talk about sustainability for ranches, and everybody, you think about worst case scenario, somebody dies in an accident and they're taken unexpectedly. But if somebody has a heart attack, needs a triple bypass, if somebody's diagnosed with cancer and needs a lot of medical attention, that's the same thing. They are taken out of the operation. Plus, now they also need extra help with other people from the operation now coming in and caring for them. And so, we think about the worst case scenario of death and how that functionally can cripple a ranch. But we also have to look at health and these major catastrophic incidents as really having a way of just being detrimental to resilience on a ranch operation. And this is exactly, this preventative care is something that it's hard to persuade folks to get to. It's a population of folks that only goes in if they've got a bone that they've broke and it's now showing through the skin. But now we're finally getting to a point where maybe we can both lead the horse to water and make it drink. So it's a fantastic conversation.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to go to this big picture. So Sarah, we've talked a lot about the human microbiome as well as the soil microbiome, but I just want you to kind of give us this parallel again, because we're talking to folks that know about soil health. We've talked about the weight loss, the energy, some of that with Craig and what he's done, but kind of marry those ideas together again for us.
Yeah, my favorite topic. So when I first started looking into the whole connection with human health and soil health, typically what you heard was, okay, the nutrient density of our food has declined over last several generations, right? And so we're losing nutrients in the soil, and because we're destroying soil health. But then when I really started listening to people like Nicole Masters and Ray Archuleta, all the soil health gurus, and I really love Christine Jones. I think she's absolutely phenomenal as far as really getting into the microbes and what she calls the sociobiome in the soil. It's not much different from what's actually happening in the human gut microbiome when we're looking at the microbes in the soil versus microbes in the human gut. It's what I learned from all those soil health experts is not so much that the soil has lost nutrients. A lot of those nutrients are actually still there, but what's missing is the microbial life. And when I learned about how critically important that animal impact is on the land to help, get that microbial system really sometimes jump started, but also just keep that going, keep enriching it, right? That was mind blowing for me because, you hear so much about animals can destroy the land, and they certainly can, right? It's all about management. And that management matters so much. And when you get the right management and you see what animals can do to heal the land, in my latest article that I wrote, Meat is Medicine, I called animals ecological medicine as well, right? Being able to heal the land with just being the amazing ruminant animals that they are. And not that pigs and, chickens don't have a role too, but ruminants in particular, very powerful. So I just like drawing those connections between what's kind of happening there around like the rhizosphere, which is, the microbiome around the root system of a plant, how those microbes are nourishing the plant. The plant is also kind of nourishing those microbes. And you got that beautiful symbiotic relationship going on there. And that's so much like what's happening in our gut. These microbes aren't just hanging out in our gut. And most of your listeners, I'm sure, have heard probiotics, even if they haven't heard of a microbiome. But those probiotics, those good microbes, they nourish us, and we nourish them by how we eat, by how well we sleep, how well we manage our stress, eliminate toxins. That helps, enrich our microbiome. That helps us with our health. Just like the soil microbiome is going to make that plant more nutrient dense. Those microbes help that plant take up all the nutrients, and then that's going to nourish your animals. And, that's the whole ecosystem connection.
Craig, has this made you look at your ranch any different, approach your strategies any different?
Yes. Sarah's just reinforces our mindset that we've been traveling down for about a dozen years now. And I've started, you call it regenerative, you call it adaptive grazing. And in my way of looking at grass, people need exercise, and you need time to rest and recover from it. Well, the way to exercise your grass, you graze it. And then it needs time to rest, and it needs time to recover. And it all is situational dependent. Where you live, how much rain, timing that you've grazed it, whether you're in a brittle environment, where you're on a hay bottom, it just depends so much. Yeah, our place there's quite a lot of diversity in it, with a creek running through the center of it, so that gets treated differently versus the south side is rockier and more native prairie, and the north side is more. Anyway, it just depends a lot. So one of the key points that was told to me, you start reversing the organic matter depletion process if you have 20 plus pastures per growing season, or per season. I want to say a year is a long time. This has never been explained to me, but you're actually given that per herd, 20 pastures per herd. Then you're starting to reverse the trend of organic matter depletion and allowing those plants to recover. So that's like the magic number, get to 20. And it's quite frankly very easy to do that. You can only move once every 10 days, and that's 200 days. And you got it done. You're barely over half the year. Anyway, So I guess that's my main takeaway. Sarah just reinforced she found a way to correlate it both with the human body and the environment, and she can amp it up and talk big words that you don't understand, or she can quite frankly say it in a way that most everybody can understand too.
I want to tackle this idea of cognitive function and the term, of course, that everybody loves to shy away from, and that is mental health. We're talking a lot about gut microbiome, but Sarah, in the work that you've done with the folks that you've had the pleasure to work with, you're realizing it's a lot more than just gut health once you can get this all straightened out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was an aha moment for me early in my career when it was, so much of the focus on healing the gut and fixing the diabetes and helping people lose weight. And then when you started hearing about the mental health changes, right? I don't feel as depressed anymore, and my anxiety improved. And then you go, oh, okay. Yeah, of course, it's all connected. And it's interesting how much that doesn't always get focused on, even within the healthcare world. There's so much talk about, the biggest things that affect Americans, which is heart disease and diabetes and weight gain. But when I started doing, work within agricultural communities and I heard about the high suicide rates, my heart just, sank. It was really startling to hear that. One of the latest statistics I heard is that farmer or rancher is 5 times more likely to commit suicide than someone in the general population. And I mean, that was just heartbreaking to hear. I lost my best friend due to, substance abuse issues. And I myself, and I shared this at the Montana Soil Health Symposium, I shared my journey with mental health issues and, and suicidal thoughts and that kind of thing. Right. So I can absolutely relate to that. I just relate from a different standpoint since I didn't grow up in this community. But when I'm now being so immersed in it, I see the challenges and the struggles, within farming and ranching. And yeah, so when you create that, I love that word that you always use, resilience. When you create that resilience in the human body, and there's the gut microbiome connection, which we're so going to dive into in the workshop. But very, very strong connection between what's happening in the gut and the brain. And about 90% of your serotonin is made in the gut, which is your happy, feel good neurotransmitter, right? If you don't have adequate serotonin, you're going to feel depressed and anxious. I lived most of my life in a state of anxiety and depression. That was from childhood. Even when I was a child, I had suicidal thoughts. My gut was messed up. I was raised on standard American diet, right? Lots of health issues. Anyway, yeah, it's all connected, very much so.
Craig, I was counting months on my fingers. You've only been after this for, 6 months, even if you changed your diet immediately after the Soil Health Symposium. But how does it feel for you as far as the brain function goes, as far as mental health goes for you? Do you feel clearer? Does it feel better?
Definitely, yes. You person wants to be in shape, and 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 so you want to take care of yourself, and then you find these obstacles that don't allow you to. It seems like, whether it be job or your own discipline, or cravings that you can't control. And I guess that's, in my view, one of the keys to having a positive state of mind is to take care of yourself. Sarah's has allowed me to be in that mindset. I do feel like I am. And then the other thing that allows someone to stay in a positive mindset, these are my two philosophies, is you do something to benefit someone else. And so if you can take care of yourself and you do something to benefit someone else, that puts you into a positive mindset, and you get up and you get going and you're motivated positively, not by money, not by success, and I guess in a way, this regenerative ag movement, you are doing something to take care of the land that is in your responsibility. I mean, I have the right to pay the taxes on where I am right now for a while. I don't actually, it's not mine, but I got the right to pay the taxes on it. And I enjoy the illusion that I am doing a better job of it. And I'm buying into what practices are suggested, not completely, because this is an evolution thing. It takes time, and we're monitoring to decide to actually see if we actually gaining on it. And one of the best ways there is your percentage of ground cover, and you get to talking about your bugs underground, your microbiome, your biome underneath there. Oh yeah, she's got me warped into talking like that now too. But it's easily said. I got to say one more thing, and then I'll give somebody else some chance here. You make your cows work for you instead of you work for your cows. And, that's a common statement. Well, just think if you can get all them bugs working for you, what a bunch of employees where you don't even have to have an HR department. You're there making it happen for you. So it's what's going on underground that is way more important than above. And once you solve that, you're ahead of the curve.
That's perfect. Yep. All the underground livestock. And that's so true for human health too, because if you get that microbiome really working well for you, it's life changing. And it definitely changed my life too. And I want to make a comment too, Haylie, that anyone out there that is struggling, with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and and you're feeling discouraged, just know that if you haven't dived into that route of looking at gut health and nutrition, and that there's still so much you can do to feel better, because oftentimes people beat themselves up, right? And why do I feel this way? I tried this medication or that medication and it worked for a little bit, or it's not working at all, or it had side effects. And just know that there is truly another way to feel better again.
The part of that discussion I always go to as well is that the discussion always goes straight to suicide when you talk about mental health. And there's a lot of area that's in the middle. And you don't have to necessarily be suicidal, but you do deserve to live a life that's not in that gray area. You do deserve to live a life where you just feel better mentally too. And people
Absolutely.
deserve to live in that space. So that's what I always try to encourage folks to do. If you're not feeling up to par and you could feel happier, you've been happier before, just fight like crazy to get back to that spot. So thank you, Sarah and Craig, both for being vulnerable in that. I really appreciate that. So, all right, crew, we have talked and talked and talked for over 45 minutes here today. So we're going to go ahead and conclude this discussion. And with that, final thoughts. Sarah, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm excited to meet some people at the workshop, so I hope you all come out. It's going to be fun. We'll do some little demos and taste some fermented foods and just dive into all the gut health and healing there. But yeah, I think my message to most farmers and ranchers is just, I applaud you. I thank you. I'm so grateful for you. I teach my, non-farmer rancher clients to also show that gratitude to, the less than 1-2% of our population that's providing all of our nourishment. So, I see you, I hear you, and I'm, here to support you all as best I can.
Craig, any final thoughts from your end?
Real quick, I just, Sarah mentioned growing a garden, going more carnivore, all that stuff. Well, we're not in a place where we can grow a garden, but we do raise good grass-fed beef, and we're looking at maybe partnering up with somebody that's got a good green thumb, and we'll just trade. You don't have to do it all. Find somebody that you might want to do it with. Look for a solution. Don't stay stuck in a rut, and find somebody to talk to and brainstorm. So, and this way of managing on the land suits my mindset, but my strong suits. So, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but figure out what you're good at and go forward.
Big thank you to Sara Keough, to Craig French as well for sharing their time and their truth today, and to you for listening to the Ranch Stewards Podcast. If this conversation resonated, we'd love to see you in Malta, October 11th, for that presentation we've been talking about. It's called Gut Check: How Soil Health Shapes Human Health. All of the details and that registration link can be found in our show notes. While you're there, hit follow, share this episode with a friend, and drop a quick rating. It really does help this community grow. Until next time, healthy soils, healthy food, healthy people. Thanks for listening to the Ranch Stewards Podcast.
You've been listening to the Ranch Stewards Podcast, a project of the Rancher Stewardship Alliance. If you like what you heard, head to ranchstewards.org for added content or follow the Ranchers Stewardship Alliance on Facebook and Instagram.